This Shabbat, we're going to do it Donahue style. You may not have known this, in fact, I'm pretty sure you don't know this. You're actually our guest speakers.
Oh.
So welcome. We're honored to have you. A brief aside before we get to our topic for the evening, which we hope and we expect you'll participate in by answering some questions. There's something I've come to think of as the Omaha effect. As I've come to tell people how excited we were to come here and to be a part of this community, I found out that everyone is from Omaha. And so the administrator of my former synagogue, I told her months ago, she was one of the first people to find out in our community that I had accepted the job here, and I said to her, I'm going to be moving to Omaha. And she said, oh, I lived there for 10 years. I've known you for 4 years, worked day in, day out with you. I never knew you lived there. So the reason I share this now is because I want to open our discussion this evening with some of my experiences, one particular experience from Camp Newman, which of course has origins in Omaha. Right? So I worked at Camp Newman for 5 years, and one of my jobs at Camp Newman was to welcome the Mishlachat, the Israeli staff, to the camp. Largely secular Israelis, so we had about a group of 35 to 40 Israelis who would come to camp every summer, and they would fly from Israel, stop over in New York, and then make their way to the West Coast, having spent a good 15 to 20 hours in transit. They'd put their bags down, and what do you think, this is your first test, what do you think is the first place they want to go?
Disney World.
Disney World? Guesses?
Starbucks.
Starbucks is a little close. Israelis tend not to like our coffee.
The beach.
Walmart. Walmart. There's nothing like Walmart in Israel, so they're all on the plane, they land, and they say to us, before the campers get here, we want to go to Walmart. So it's an hour and a half drive to the city from camp. They get off the plane, they put their bags down, we say get right back on the bus. No, we're not going to Walmart, we're going to Temple Emmanuel in downtown San Francisco. Why? Because to understand American Judaism, you have to understand the synagogue. And so we took them to this large synagogue with multiple chapels and sanctuaries. If anybody's ever been there, it's this grand synagogue in downtown San Francisco. We take them and we literally take them on a tour. We show them the bathrooms, we show them the social hall, we show them the lobby, we show them the preschool, all things that synagogues don't have in Israel. Because they define how we understand Judaism in America, and if these Israelis are going to relate to our teens, our kids, they better know what our kids get from Judaism. So I share that tonight because our topic is really for you to introduce me to the Cass Street Synagogue, which has been your home. And so I want to share one last quote, and I'm going to I'm going to let us think about this space for a little bit before I turn the mic over to you to be our speakers for the evening. It's a quote that was recently published in an essay by Professor David Kaufman. He said, the synagogue in America is a mediation institution. And he quotes another professor in saying the following: when operating best, synagogues are instigators, creators, defenders, protectors. They engage their members in the sharing of their stories, help them understand the meaning of their stories in the context of the larger world, and organize their members for action in the spirit of Tikkun Olam. So synagogues are not just buildings with walls. They are mediators, I would say. You could say Jewish lawyers. They are there to protect us. They are there to engage us. And so let's take a few moments to think of this space, this building, the many years that many of us have spent here, and how it has been our mediator, and what it's meant for you before I pose some questions so you can share with us the meaning of this building. A few moments to think about the Cass Street space for our community.
All right, what's going on now?
So let's turn our thoughts to helping these walls to speak. So I want to ask you some questions, and this is really very selfish of me because it's very beneficial for me to get to know this space that I now get to spend my days in. So I came up with a series of questions with Wendy Goldberg's help and some other staff members' help that I think can help us to bring out the words that are among these walls, everything that's happened in the years here. And so the first question is, in one word, what's one word that you would use to describe this building? You only get one word. I know this is tough for Jews, but you only get only one word. What's one word you would use to describe our space?
Community.
Okay.
Home.
Home.
Community.
Community.
Comfortable.
Comfortable.
Familiar.
Familiar.
Peaceful.
Peaceful.
Educational.
Educational. And now, if you can think of a time when you've laughed in this building. Anybody able to think of a time when you've laughed in this building? Something that you would share with the group? It doesn't have to be embarrassing. It doesn't have to be embarrassing. Which is that you're welcome to embarrass people, just not anyone that's presently in the room. Any memories of laughter?
Sitting in the Bowser Center, looking out the window and seeing an opossum crawling along the wall.
Turkey.
The resident possum.
The turkeys.
Yeah,
The time that I was a greeter and people came into the building and they looked around, this was the high holidays, and they were going to the playhouse.
So what about memories when we've cried? What are times where you've teared up here at synagogue?
When we cried.
58 years ago, my sister and brother-in-law got married here. They were the second wedding in this building. We all cried. 56 years ago, Jerry and I got married here. You cried, our 4 children were all named here. You cried. They were all bar mitzvah here. You cried. Our oldest daughter was 36, hadn't lived here for 18 or 19 years. Met the Jewish soulmate of her life, and I thought they'd run away. They decided to come back here and get married on the same pulpit that Dad and I got married.
What about times that aren't life cycle events? Other times when you can think that you've cried here, I imagine. There's a lot of history that's happened during our time here. Amy?
I've got one that was kind of personal, I guess, but what isn't personal here anymore. A few years back, when shortly after we joined Temple, we came from Israel, which is the Orthodox congregation, and our families had always been there. But our kids, when they got married, came here, and we followed. Anyway, they had the bat mitzvah classes for adults, and my wife, who had never had a bat mitzvah, being raised Orthodox at that time, girls didn't have them, etc. Anyway, our mitzvah class, when they had their big celebration, the graduation, so to speak, my father-in-law, who was sitting with me in the congregation, was knocking on 90-some years old. Anyway, the class marched around and handed each other the Torah in an Orthodox synagogue. Would have never. Anyway, my wife was carrying the Torah as she went past where my father-in-law was sitting. We all bawled.
Amy?
Rabbi Azriel has a tradition for all high school graduates where he calls each of them up one at a time to the bima. and he drapes his arms on their shoulder and he tells them, something very personal between the two of them, and the kids never share it with anyone, at least not to my knowledge. And it is so incredibly emotional even thinking about it now, to see your child up there and, be given this sort of wish and hope and send off into the world as they graduated. I cry no matter which child is up there any year.
The day or two after the tornado destroyed this building, coming in here to help clean up.
So now I'm going to ask you to be a little creative. So, if you could go back to Temple, Israel in 1951, when this land had just been purchased, the city, I imagine, was quite different. 72nd Street probably looked a little different than it does today. What would you tell the people who had worked to put this project together would be the role of Reform Judaism for the next 60 plus years in this neighborhood and in this city? Things that they couldn't have known looking forward. What's been the role of this as a Reform Jewish congregation for this city over the last 60 years?
Inviting and accepting.
I think that when the commitment ceremony happened across the street and their clergy was let go and the commitment ceremony happened here and the decision of the congregation was that was the power of the pulpit, I think that's a strong message to the community about what
speak to the new building, what would it say? What's the advice that this very experienced Jewish home can give to the brand new space that we're creating?
Continue our message of Judaism and the growth of Judaism through reform, but other things also, to continue with the building.
I think I would tell that other building to chill, it's not all about you.
Be flexible.
Keep it about the people and not about the structure.
So one of the, first of all, thank you for being our speakers. One of the many names of God that we have in Torah is Hamakom, the place. Sort of a strange idea that of all the different emotions that God portrays in Torah, whether angry or happy or proud, then all of a sudden we have this name Hamakom. And it tells us something. It tells us that there are times in our life where God is not movable, where God is not eternal, but rather God is here in the here and now. That God is where we are. God is a place, a foundation where we're rooted. That's what Hamakom, God as the place is. It's about who we are, our stories. It's about how we define ourselves, that there is a sense of godliness in that. And so my prayer for us this evening is that the walls of this synagogue continue to speak to us as the foundation of our community, that they remind us of the tears and the laughter, the people and the politics of our time, and that they continue to be a source of meaning and fond memories well beyond their years as our spiritual home. Continue with Aleinu in our prayer book.
Page 282, but before we do that,